I hope you have been enjoying this series of presenters powered by the Beauty Co with us. The first female ball by ball commentator from South Africa, Natalie Germanos, has made a name for herself, having worked for nearly 1.5 decades in the world of sports presenting. She has worked prominently at SABC, BBC, and most recently for the ICC at the Cricket World Cup. Today, we chat with Natalie about radio, TV, her good broadcasting friends, the need for inclusive language in sports, and much more. Hi, Natalie. Welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of Present Her. It's good to have you here. Uh, the last match we all watched was the finals of the T20 World Cup. I am sure it was a great event to be there. You were there. How was your experience?
First of all, thanks so much for having me on, Yash. It's great to chat to you again. It was wonderful meeting you as well in Australia. It feels like almost a few years ago now. I can't believe it's only just been a few months. There's so much that's happened in that time. The world is a completely different place. But I suppose in a way, that final almost made women's cricket a completely different place too, because having that many people watching the game, transfixed on the game, involved in the game, invested in the game, it was very special. I was sitting next to Ebony Rainford Brent and Sanamir. We were very lucky to have hospitality tickets because unfortunately I wasn't working on the game, but we were very well treated and I had a wonderful view of the game. And I'm not going to lie, I had tears in my eyes. I very often shed a tear because it was such a beautiful day.
There's been a lot of things that have happened in the last 3 months. We're in a complete lockdown. I have to ask you this. And how's the lockdown treating? This is something which we have never seen before. It's something I'm not sure is exciting. So how do you see that?
Oh, it's so tough. I think if we look from a sporting perspective, if we look at the women's cricket just in particular, we were so excited about what happened after Australia, and everybody was looking forward to what would be next. We'd obviously have the 50 over World Cup qualifiers, the 50 over World Cup in New Zealand. These are all things that are around the corner. The qualifiers have been delayed, but it's a real worry that any momentum is lost. It doesn't matter if it's a little bit or a lot. It's a worry that any momentum is lost because women's cricket can so easily get pushed to the back because they want to get the men's cricket back on track. Because we know that it is a major money spinner. Losing an IPL is massive for India. We've got a men's T20 World Cup also to be staged as well, and that's also just around the corner. So these are all events that are massive to the well-being of cricket. Now, question is, from a woman's point of view, does it get pushed to the back burner? I don't think it will, because I think there are really good people that are pushing for women's cricket just to get better and better. And I think there's really good people that are involved in making sure the welfare of the game is something that is top of everybody's mind. But I do worry for some of the players. One, obviously, it's not great to be off the field. Everybody wants to be on the field playing, keeping their form up, fitness, all those things, but also from a mental perspective, because it's tough. It's scary. It's worrying. There's a lot of these ladies that don't have full-time contracts. They're not necessarily getting a salary anyway. Some may be coaching, physiotherapists, those type of jobs to supplement their income, and they won't even have that because of the lockdown. So it is very tough. So I do worry from a player's perspective, coach's perspective, anybody who's really involved in the game and earns some sort of living from it. And the worry, of course, is any exodus of players. I'm hoping that now we're seeing cricket starting to return, we won't see too much of an exodus, but it is going to make the work in between the major tournaments probably even harder for the next couple of years.
So how's your childhood been like? How did you get involved with cricket, with the sport in general?
Well, my sort of lifestyle was definitely a can't beat him, you might as well join him story, because I had twin younger brothers who played cricket. I had a father who was engrossed in cricket. All we ever did was watch cricket on screen or any other sport. It was hard to find another channel. This was back when there wasn't 100 channels that you could choose from and you had 3 or 4 TVs in your house. It was a few channels to choose from, and that was what was on with sport. So I started out actually as a swimmer. That was my main sport when I was a young kid. And I always had dreams of actually being an Olympic swimmer. Eventually I got to a point where I felt like, no, I'm a bit more suited to more of a team sport. And I got a little bit more involved in things like netball. I did play a little bit of tennis, but not to a very high level. And then eventually we had a six-a-side women's tournament at my secondary school, my high school. When I was in standard 6, I was 12 or 11, and they said, hey, why don't you girls come along, you want to come and play? And I was like, well, I've been playing with my brothers in the backyard. My dad told us all the stories about cricket and the previous games, the stars, all those things. And I thought, why not? I didn't think anything of, I'm a girl, I can't play cricket. I just thought, let's go play six-a-side cricket. This sounds like fun. And I got more and more into it, and we eventually developed a women's team at my high school. And I started to grow a real love and passion for the game itself. I'll never forget the 92 World Cup, listening to the World Cup in my Walkman. I don't know if you remember those things. We used to have a Walkman. And put it through the sleeve and sit there like this with the radio and listen to the cricket. And it just, all these things grew this love for the game even more, and eventually, fortunately, was able to carve a bit of a career out of the game as well.
So was it always that you wanted to become a cricket commentator, or there was something else that was brewing?
Well, I started, the cricket commentary thing probably started when I was about probably 15, 16, I started to think about it. That wasn't necessarily something that consumed all my days at that stage. I was more thinking about playing. And then when the realization started coming along that the women's game wasn't that professional and you can't really make a career out of it, obviously you start thinking about other things. But originally, I actually wanted to be a marine biologist or a game ranger. So I've got a huge love for animals, a massive passion. I always have. As a kid, growing up, it's always been a massive part of my life. It still is. I love to visit Kruger. It's my absolute favorite place to go in the world. I can spend 2 weeks there driving around the bush looking for animals and not bat an eyelid and be very happy. I love taking photographs of animals. Even my bar in my house is themed to the Big Five, and I've got Africa, and it's all part of my life. So marine biology originally was what I was thinking about, and then I thought, well, I'd actually like to maybe be a game ranger. So that was where I was sort of sitting when I finished school, was either going to be a game ranger field guide or doing the cricket commentary. And the reason I chose cricket and sports commentary and sports broadcasting in general is because I got a bursary to go and study a sports management degree. So that's the reason that I went that path, because I was sort of split as to what to go and study. I got the bursary and I thought, well, maybe this is a sign, let's go in this route, and it's just kept on going from there.
You've been one of the first cricket commentators in South Africa, the first ball-by-ball female commentator. How are the challenges, and how do you see the growth?
Yeah, there was definitely challenges when I first started. One, obviously, the nerves of being on air and never having done proper sports broadcasting. I'd done a few other things like some sports news and those type of things. So you have the normal nerves and the normal worry that you're going to make mess ups, you're going to make mistakes, you don't know maybe what to say, are you contributing enough? You have those normal things that anybody else would experience. But then it's also that feeling that you don't necessarily belong, because, as you say, most of the people around you are males. Now, I've been very lucky in that the SABC that I've worked for since the start here in South Africa, they've been very happy to promote females. If you know what you're talking about, if you're good enough, you can do the job. They've never really looked at you and said, but you're a woman, what do you know about the sport? We've never had that, fortunately. We've been very lucky with that. There's still less females that want to get involved, though. So you get into the arena and you start on commentary. I remember my first commentary gig in 2005 at Parch. It was on a Women's World Cup, but I was surrounded by men. The only other female that was there that was broadcasting at the time was Cass Naidoo, and she had already done a few years of broadcasting. She's done cricket commentary on TV in particular, and was the main presenter for the 2003 World Cup for the SABC. So she'd already experienced a lot of that, and I think just seeing her there even that made it a little bit easier, because you just, okay, I feel like there's a friendly face. She knows what I'm going through. I know hopefully know what she went through as well. So that did help, that's for sure. But you do get that feeling of people thinking, should you be here? What do you know? You never played international cricket. You may have played a little bit of club cricket and school cricket, and you may have coached a little bit, but you never played international cricket. That's another thing that you do is in the back of your mind. And I suppose in a way those challenges are probably still there when you enter a new team. If you've never commentated with certain people before, if you've never commentated in certain countries before and with certain broadcasters. So that's probably those uneasy feelings, and those challenges are still there. But it's made a lot easier now because it's changed over the years with the number of females broadcasting now. These wonderful commentators that we work with, who are some of the best commentators in the world, not the best female commentators. They are some of the best commentators in the world. Ishagua is absolutely brilliant, and you can see that by obviously everything she's done, all the things that she's been able to accomplish, and she just keeps getting better and better for her. That's just to name one. There's many female commentators that have worked really hard in this industry, and it's made it a lot easier to have other females around. But those challenges are still there. It's still a male-dominated industry. Whether you're behind the scenes, in front of the cameras, it's still there. But it is great also to get the opportunity to broadcast more on women's cricket as well. And I think that also helps quite a lot in terms of making a name and gaining hopefully some respect.
So it's been nearly 15 years that you have done commentary. And as you say, that there have been a lot of changes. The society is now a bit more accepting in terms of having more females into the system. Does that feel like a sense of achievement that you made your debut 15 years and you've seen a lot of females grow, possibly mentor them?
It's a very good question, because I actually have been thinking about a lot of things in terms of, because we've had so much time to be thinking now, we haven't really been doing much else. We've had a lot of thinking time. I've been thinking a lot about things like that, like what have I achieved? Have I achieved as much as I would have liked to achieve? Have I patted myself on the back as well for the things that I have achieved? Because I don't think we do that enough. And I think that's a general thing with people in this industry, maybe professional sports people as well. Don't really pat yourself on the back and say, hey, I actually have achieved amazing things. I still don't think that I've necessarily achieved everything I want to, but looking back on 15 years, I hope that I have influenced some other females to realize you can do this. I really hope that those doubts are now starting to go, and it's more about the work itself and what do I need to do to be the best. And it's not so much about can I be there, it's more do I deserve to be there because of the work that I've put forward. I do hope that it's getting to that stage. We're probably not 100% there yet, but I do hope it is getting to that stage. I think going forward, there's, like I say, a lot of things I still want to achieve. And I am hoping that it's a collaborative effort. I like working with other people and with other broadcasters, whether they're male or female, to make this a safer space, a more comfortable space, and a space where people can just go out there and give their absolute best and make it about entertainment and make it about the sport. And not so much about somebody listening and saying, oh, she's only there because she's a woman and it's they have to fulfill that quota. I hope it's a collaborative effort going forward, that people don't even have to talk about that anymore. And it's just about, is she a good commentator or not?
So you've done both a long time radio and TV. What do you think are the differences and the similarities? Because I'm very sure when you go up there, you have a different mindset, you do different types of preparations before actually doing the job.
Oh, absolutely. It is different. There's similarities, as you said, there are some, but it is definitely different. And it's not a case of if you're good on radio, you're good on TV, vice versa, but you can definitely do both. I started on radio, and I feel very privileged to have had the radio background, because I think in many ways that's helped me with TV, commentary, and also presenting as well, because on radio you are exposed in terms of what you have to say, because you have to fill the space. You don't have graphics to go to. You don't have an opportunity to go back on a highlight. You can talk about it, but nobody can see that. So from a point of view of that, it's important to know your stuff. You need to have your research needs to be there. You need to be able to fill space, because there's a lot of dead air in cricket. It's not like rugby and soccer where it's going all the time. Cricket, there's a lot of dead air, especially in Test cricket, because there's a lot of space to fill in between. There's quiet times, there's tea times, there's lunch times. There's a lot of space to fill. So you need to make sure that your research is there, and in particular with radio. Radio is also great because you get the opportunity to, it's a cliche, but you are creating a picture in people's minds. It's theatre of the mind, it is. And it is so much fun. It is so much fun to be able to do that. It's a wonderful way to use the English language, or any language that you do it in. Use your language, because the language is so important in creating those pictures, and have fun with it and enjoy it. And I love that part of radio. We've probably got more time on radio to tell stories, have a bit of fun, because you don't have to go to certain segments. You don't have to go to highlights. You just talk. And that's been the great thing about it, whether it's been with SABC or BBC, you get an opportunity to talk cricket, you get an opportunity to have fun, tell jokes, tell stories, talk about the history of the game a lot more. But at the same time, TV is nice because it's an easier way to explain things. If you want to talk about a certain technique, a certain way of holding a ball, certain fielding positions as well, obviously TV is much easier. You've got the opportunity to show people and then really teach them the game. It's teaching them the game in a very different way, and educating them about the nuances of the game that you can't really do on radio, and you can't really show them. TV, it also gives you a great opportunity to see people's expressions and to work with people's expressions, which I really enjoy doing, especially when you're in the comm box with somebody you're having a bit of fun, you're having a bit of a laugh, maybe a bit of banter back and forth, and you've got the opportunity for maybe the cam, or if you're in studio, whatever it may be, it gives you that opportunity to sort of bounce off each other, which I think has also been pretty difficult with the lockdown. And I could see how much you miss having a conversation with somebody in the room next to you. It's one thing to have it obviously on the internet, but it's so different having it with somebody who's next to you. So there's differences between the two. I love them both for their different nuances, or their different little things that they offer, but they definitely are a different challenge. I would say there's probably, when it comes to technique and commentary, I'd probably say there's more differences than there actually is similarities between the two, from my perspective and what I've learned.
And what about the fumbles that go on live commentary? So, of course, you cannot be correct all the time, and there will be a lot of mistakes that you do. Sometimes you may misspell someone's name, you may pronounce it wrong, you may do a lot of fumbles on live. How do you correct those?
Or pronunciations, yes. Pronunciations with the T20 World Cup this year in particular, because of course we had Thailand and we didn't know most of those players. So learning to pronounce those names, well, normally what I would do is I'd put it in Google Translate and I'd hope that they would be right. It's not always right. It does go wrong sometimes. But we were fortunate to have some voice notes with this T20 World Cup that we were given by the ICC to help us pronounce the names, or at least try, because the accent is very difficult. Even with India and South Africa, the V's, W's are all different. Where you put your accent itself is different. Sri Lankan names are completely different, whereas they'll tell you it's just phonetic, it's just as it is. Yes, it might be to you, but to us, we put the sort of emphasis in different parts of the name. So pronunciations is a massive thing, and it's one that I think we all end up fumbling with at some point, even sometimes with people we should know how to pronounce their names, because we don't actually ask, we just assume and then just go with it. Usually I don't like to laugh off bad pronunciations, because I think that's disrespectful to the person and disrespectful to the player. But other fumbles I generally will laugh it off, because you know what, we all make mistakes, and I think that is the lesson that took me the longest to learn, was we all make mistakes. I'm very hard on myself. I hold myself to as high a standard as I possibly can, and I don't like making mistakes. I don't think anybody does. But it's good to learn that, you know what, we all make mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with making a mistake, as long as you're willing to correct yourself, and also you're not going to make that same mistake again over and over, because then you're not obviously learning from it. But generally, we'll laugh things off. We'll have a good smile. I've had a few moments where you just can't help but smile. Somebody like Ray Jennings, who coached South Africa for a long time, but he also did commentary with us on SABC back at home. He's a practical joker. He loved to hide my shoes, because in studio I'd wear my high heels when I was on air, and then I'd take them off when I was off air because they're uncomfortable, and I'm a sports girl. I like wearing my tackies and my flip-flops. So he would hide my shoes before I was just about to go on air, and he would hide it in places I couldn't reach them or I couldn't find them. He loved to do that, and things like if we're on a countdown, he can hear the director counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before the director gets to 3, Ray Jennings would say things like, "Don't mess it up," and you all of a sudden you're thinking, "Oh, okay, don't mess it up," and you start worrying. And it's Ray Jennings, and he's this legend and this amazing person who makes everybody laugh, and you don't want to mess it up in front of him, and you know he's going to be laughing at you. So there's things like that, and eventually, I think you find your own way of dealing with mistakes and fumbles and those type of things. And it all sort of coincides with your own personality and bringing that through. But the biggest lesson I definitely learned was that we all make mistakes, and it's okay, and not to beat yourself up about it.
So just like Ray, I'm pretty sure you have a lot of good relationships with your other female commentators, Isa, Lisa, Mel, Ebony, Cass. There are many. So how close are you guys, and are there any stories which the world would want to know?
Well, we are actually, we're very close. I know it sounds like a cliche and people are going to say, "Oh, yeah, I'm sure you're not really behind the scenes," but we actually are. We've got a WhatsApp group where we've got as many of the female broadcasters, journalists that we chat with back and forth all the time, whether it be something about serious news, something about someone's achievement, or just something to laugh off and have a little bit of a joke. We chat back and forth. Mel Jones, Ebony, and I are very close friends. We've spent a lot of time together on tour, doing other things. I was fortunate enough in Australia to stay an extra week with Mel Jones, and she took me around Melbourne, and we went to the coast, and it's a wonderful experience. Ebony stayed on for a few days. She then went on to Fiji for a few days herself. So we've spent quite a lot of time together, and have been fortunate to travel around the world. Ebony, Mel, and I did a little bit of traveling together also in the Caribbean, which was obviously pretty special and a wonderful place to be, and certainly a great place to commentate on cricket. But I can tell you that Ebony is one of the funniest people I know. She makes everything a laugh and everything a joke, and everything is a passion, but it comes from this most beautiful place, because she is an incredible person. And Mel and I are literally in tears most of the time when we are around Ebony. But this time around, it was Ebony that was actually the one who was in tears from crying, and that, as in laughing. We were in England. This was actually an on-air moment. It was the 2017 World Cup, and we were in Bristol. It was England playing the West Indies, and it was Hayley Matthews that was bowling. Now, she got cramp, and as she was bowling, the cramp sort of like it went through her legs, and obviously she pulled up and she fell over and screaming in pain. You could actually hear her screaming. And of course, for some reason, everybody laughs. They find these things funny. And it shouldn't really be funny, because she was in quite a bit of pain, but we were laughing. And it happened a couple of times over. And it was Mel Jones and I that were on air on radio. And Mel was saying, "Well, yeah, you know, I used to know," we were talking about just cramps in general and that type of thing. And Mel said, "Yeah, I used to know this lady who would wear heels to bed." And we were all like, what are you talking about? Where's this story going? Ebony was in the background, and Isha as well. And they were on the floor, rolling with laughter, thinking, where on earth is this story going? You're telling us about a lady she used to know who wore heels to bed. And I'm commentating in between this story. And she's like, no, let me just get to the crux of the story. And she said, no, she did it because she used to get cramps in bed. And she wore the heels, and apparently for some reason that used to help. Well, Ebony was crying so much with laughter. She couldn't stand up. They took photos of it, even the BBC, the TMS Test Match special. They put it on the internet, on social media. I was trying somehow to get through those couple of overs with Mel Jones while Hayley Matthews was screaming in pain with the cramps. And those are the type of things that we ended up experiencing together. And I think it also brought us like a little bit closer. Because now we look back on those moments and we have a laugh. We even went out and that night and had a little drink and enjoyed the night together. And we took a photo of our cramp face and all sorts of these are the type of things that we end up together. And I must start writing these stories down, I think, because I think you end up forgetting some of the laughs and some of the jokes. But the memories are very special, and I'm very, very grateful to be a part of these amazing broadcasters.
Right. So coming to social media, how do you treat it? So there are a lot of pros and cons. A lot of people have talked about it. There's a lot of shaming which happens. There are a lot of boos, but there are a lot of praises also. Is it important to be very mentally tough to deal with all these trolls, to deal with your the people who like what you're doing and the people who try and troll you?
Mentally tough, definitely, because it's so easy to get down on yourself. I think I don't know if it's a human trait. I'm not sure if it's maybe even a female trait or even just a South African trait. You see these negativities being thrown at you, and it takes one person to say, I don't like your commentary, you're useless, or you're talking rubbish, or whatever. And it just takes one person, and for some reason, you get down on yourself. Now, I might have a day where I get 3 or 4 people saying, love your commentary, can't wait to meet you, or something very nice. And then there'll be that one person who gives you criticism, and for some reason that brings you down. And this was another lesson that I learned, and a very hard lesson to learn, was that taking criticism if it is something that's useful. So for example, on radio, if somebody says to you, you don't say the score enough, that is a criticism that's warranted, and it's something that you need to look into, because on radio you need to say the score, because how else do people know the score? So that's a criticism that is coming from somebody who just wants something better from you. It's not somebody who's there just to be nasty. They're not just a keyboard warrior. They're not somebody that you want to necessarily block on social media. And I've learned now, if you feel that somebody on social media is not being somebody who's just there to be nasty, block them, mute them, whatever it may be. Don't spend too much time on it, and don't even give them the airtime or time of day. If you're having a general conversation, like they make a statement and you disagree and you feel like you want to have the conversation, go ahead and have the conversation, as long as it's something that's not nasty and it's not something that's there just to bring you down. But it's a very hard lesson, and it's something that still sticks with me. There's times on social media where I battle, and I sometimes struggle also to keep my mouth shut, because I am that type of person who just can fly off the wheel at times, and I tend to be emotional, and if something upsets me, my emotions go, and I sometimes just fly by the seat of my pants, and I do regret it later. But sometimes it's also important just to take a breather, look at it and say, all right, is this person here to help me? Or is this person here just to be nasty? It's sometimes hard to discern between the two, but it is important to do that. And I think that if I had to give any advice to anybody, it would be just that. Just take a breather, ask the question, are they there to be nasty, or are they there to help you?
Which has been your favorite game which you have watched live?
I have a few. It's very hard to pick between the amazing games that I've seen. The 438 game, the men's ODI at the Wanderers, South Africa versus Australia. That was huge. To be part of that and to work on that, to work with commentary, and I was doing a bit of reporting as well. And then have Ian Bishop, who was on radio with us. He did the last few overs. He finished off the game for us. It was quite special to be part of that, and it's a game that's gone down in history, obviously. And for a long time, that was my favorite game. And it was also right at the beginning of my career as well. So it was a very long time that it stayed my favorite game. But then I would probably say the final 2017 stands out because of the occasion, the people queuing to get into Lords to watch a women's game was Oh, it was wonderful. That was special. And also to commentate on it was special too. And the finish was incredible. I know India won't look back on that necessarily fondly with from a point of view of the finish, but for them to make that final, to have beaten England in the opening game as well, it was a wonderful tournament for India for so many reasons. And they were very close to lifting that trophy, closer than a lot of other teams may ever get. So it was a very special day.
So you've told a lot about commentators being friends, you hanging out with Mel, Ebony, and a lot of others. Who have been your favorite commentators?
Favorite commentators? It's a question I get asked quite a bit, in particular by people who are in my family or my friends, and they always say, "Oh, who's the nicest to work with and who's the most fun?" Well, my favorite commentators, I haven't had a chance to work with Mike Atherton. I'd love to work with him one day. I think he's absolutely brilliant. He's so professional. He's fun. He's happy to laugh at himself. He's got great band. I think he's well researched. His writing is fantastic. So he's definitely up there. Mel Jones is genuinely one of my favorite commentators. I was so lucky to have worked with her, and I couldn't wait to work with her in 2017. It was really, really a treat to work with her and to continue to work with her as well. I think she is definitely one of the best commentators in the world. I worked with Nasser Hussain as well at the T20 World Cup, both of them in the Caribbean and in Australia, and I think he is superb. He's also right at the top of my list. There's a lot of people that I've worked with that I think are fantastic. Radio is probably a little bit different. Jonathan Agnew, Jim Maxwell, they're really fantastic. Ali Mitchell's great too. So it's very difficult to pick a few, but it's one I would definitely, if somebody said to me, who would you like to work with? Mike Atherton would definitely be right up there. And the ones I have worked with, Mel Jones is up there, and so is Nasser Hussain. I think they're absolutely brilliant. But no offense to anybody else I have worked with. I think everybody that I've worked with is really good. But if I'm forced to answer, I think they would be right at the top.
How much is the need of constant learning there? We see a lot of... So we've seen that batsman has evolved to batter. A lot of people have changed that term. And that should be the way we look towards the future. So how much is that need of constant learning and constantly imbibing gender inclusive words important?
I think when we talk about language, I think it's the easiest, cheapest, most basic way to change things in terms of making everybody feel included in the game. And this is something that Lisa Stalaker and Mel Jones taught me. It was something they already did in Australia, where they would say batter. They don't say third man, they say third. Or just say third on the boundary. They don't say 12th man, they just say 12th or substitute. They've taken the gender out of it completely. And initially I was kind of like, well, it's traditional, you should say batsman, we've always said batsman, but actually it used to be fieldsman too. We now say fielder. Nobody complains about the word fieldsman, nobody says it should be that, it's fielder. That's just how it's been. It's been like that for a long time. And nobody bats an eyelid with that. Now, batter is something that gets used. I know a lot of people will say, oh, but that's a baseball term. But there's lots of sporting terms that get used across other sports. A keeper, for example. We say wicket keeper, of course, for cricket, but keeper gets used in many sports. It's not something that's just in cricket. It's in hockey, it's in soccer, it's in netball, it's in all sorts of sports. So it's not unusual to see sports terms being used across the board. So I don't have any issue with that at all. It's not something that's going to be it's going to be incorrect to use. Most players say batter. Even a lot of captains will say go down to third on the boundary. They don't, or drop to third. They don't necessarily say third man. And it is just about being gender inclusive and making sure that people who come into the game, so especially for youngsters who come into the game, they look at it and they don't go, oh, but this is a sport just for men, because they hear the word man all the time. And we want them to feel all-inclusive, obviously. Even kit. If you look at sizes of kit and you go and buy pads, it says boys and men sizes. That's what the sizes it comes in, instead of just junior and senior. it's simple things to change. Those are things that don't cost money to change. So I think from a language point of view, that's very important, and it's something that can change the game in a very easy and simple way. And like I say, this is something that Lisa Stalake and Mel Jones brought to my attention, and I learned it from them, and it's something that I've tried to take into my own commentary. Constant learning is very important. I've been fortunate now with this time to sit down and go, okay, what are the things I want to change with regards to my own commentary and my own broadcasting, and things I would like to work on. And those include things like showing emotion and doing it in ways that work and fit in with things. I've even thought about taking acting classes to bring that in and bring it in more in a more natural way, and be able to bring your personality forward, to also relax more as well, to be more confident, all those type of things. The constant learning is very important. And anybody who asks me about preparing for a game, or anybody who asks me about what it takes to be a commentator, I say research, and some more research. Lots of work goes into it. It's not just a case of going on air and just talking the game. You've got to constantly know what's going on around the world. You've got to know the history of the game. You've also got to make sure that you know the players, and those are changing all the time. So yeah, constant learning. It's embedded in this job, and it's a great part of the job. I love the learning part.
So 15 plus years in journalism, what would be your message for budding people who would like to get into broadcasting, who would like to get into sports commentary and a lot of other avenues?
I think the first thing I would say is that don't always back yourself. Don't sell yourself short. Make sure that you back yourself and you have confidence within yourself, because this is a business that requires confidence. It requires a lot of work. You need to be doing your research. That's very important. Always try and know as much as you possibly can, but then at the same time, don't be scared to ask questions of other people, because I think sometimes we want to make sure, oh no, we know everything, and you don't want to be that person that doesn't know what's going on, or doesn't know a story, or doesn't know something about the game. But actually, you need to learn from other people as well, and it makes you a better broadcaster when you start learning from other people. I would also say get a mentor, because I had a mentor, and having that sounding board back and forth it's so valuable. They will help you with things that you make a mistake with. They'll help you with things that can make you better. They'll help you with technique, because there is a technique to commentary. It's not just talking the game. There is a technique to it. So I would say definitely get yourself a mentor. Make sure you have someone that you trust, that you can also just talk to when you're having one of those bad days, and they can make you feel better, and they can help you out, and they can also be honest with you and tell you this was good, this needs to change, work on this, fix this. Those things are very important. But it is a tough industry. You'll have to have a very thick skin. It doesn't matter what your aim is, if it's to be a commentator, presenter, work even behind the scenes as well. It's very difficult being producer, director, even the sound engineers. You're under pressure all the time. It's constant pressure. So you're going to have a very thick skin, but it is something that's possible. Work on it, do your research, try and find somebody you trust, and then hopefully you're able to build a successful career out of it.
So you've done SABC, you've done a lot of things in South Africa, BBC, and now ICC. What's next for Natalie Germanos?
I'm hoping, obviously I'm hoping to be a part of the 50 over World Cup next year in New Zealand. It would be the first time traveling to New Zealand for work. I've been there for a holiday, and it's a beautiful place to go. So I'm hoping that will be next on the radar. I'm hoping for a few other international gigs and to travel more. I would love to get involved a little bit more with the more development side of cricket, so a little bit the step lower from international cricket, whether it be the provincial sides, the domestic sides, or maybe even lower than the qualifying sides that are trying to get to qualify for ICC tournaments, those type of things. I'd like to get involved in that side of it. I've done a lot of coaching before. It's very difficult to coach a team at the moment because I'm traveling all the time and I can't be committed to a team, and it's not fair on the team. So I'd just like to get involved in some other way of helping out the teams. I enjoy my media training. I enjoy doing that. I would like to do some lecturing on sports broadcasting. I think could be something I would like to venture into. Cover an Olympics would be great. That would be something that I would really love to do. I know the next year's Olympics is out of it, but good to go forward and cover maybe some different sports as well. I've done some football, I've done some tennis, I've done netball. Just to get the opportunity to maybe do some more sports would be great. Not too much that I'm thinking about at the moment.
You've already told a lot of things. So next up is all what are your favorites? So you've had multiple one-on-one conversations with a lot of sports stars. Which would be your top three?
Top three, I would say having conversations with Mel Jones. I know I mention her name a lot. She's always been somebody I've looked up to, whether it be commentary, even when she was playing. And just as a person, she's an incredible person to sit and talk to. She's very level-headed. She makes you see another side to a story that you may never have seen before. She's got a wonderful, warm personality. She welcomes everybody in and treats everybody the same. She makes sure that you all feel welcome in her presence. She's just an incredible human being, and to have sporting conversations with her is very special to me. Michael Holding. I've had a lot of discussions with Michael Holding, great fast bowler for the West Indies, of course, but also an amazing commentator now in his own right, and also another friendly, warm, down-to-earth person. He doesn't look down on anybody. He's got wonderful stories. He's a great storyteller as well. And every now and again, back and forth, we do have WhatsApp conversations with each other. And he's always got time for people. And I love that about him. I've had a lot of different one-on-one conversations, in particular with past players, commentators now as well. But I'd have to say, if I said the other person, I would actually say it as a team. The team that I've played with volleyball, that would be the other one. I know it sounds, I'm taking a team and making it into a person, but they're a whole entity. I got the chance to play volleyball at quite a high level here in South Africa, and with some players that played for South Africa and played for the provinces as well. And we won one of our club championships, and that time spent with those ladies on tour around the country taught me a lot about myself, taught me a lot about, obviously about the sport, but a lot about myself, and also just working as a team and what it's like to work as a team. And I think those conversations, those one-on-ones that we had were valuable to me, and certainly vital to a lot of my development.
So who's been your inspiration in this field of sports journalism, sports commentary at the time you were growing up?
I think when I was growing up, I don't think I had anybody that necessarily specifically, one person that sort of that stood out necessarily. Certainly I can remember a moment when I was thinking about getting into sports commentary, and I saw Cass doing it. I thought, oh, if she can do it, then that she's paving a way for others to do it as well. So seeing a female there was massive. Donna Simmons, hearing her, seeing her doing it, and thinking, okay, this is definitely something I can do. It's a career that I can have. And I think more than anything, I've developed people I look up to, probably more now, funny enough, than when I was a bit younger. And I look up to people like Alison Mitchell. I think she is an all-round amazing broadcaster. Isha Gua, her rise to what she's done in the last couple of years is phenomenal. It's very special, and it's come through very hard work. She's worked very hard for it. Mel Jones is certainly up there. Lisa Staleka is phenomenal. I had a chance to work with her here in South Africa when she worked with SABC as well, not just the ICC events. And she's an incredible human being. She's a lot of fun. And actually, I suppose, really, I look up to all these women that I work with. Ebony Rainford Brent has an amazing story, and she brings that along with her. So more than anything, I look up to the women that I'm working with now more than I probably looked up to anybody when I was younger, and had sort of heroes when I was younger. These are sort of my heroes now.
Right. So let's come to the rapid fire round. I'll just give you this or that, and you have to select one. I'm sure you'll be a lot confused here. Studio or field? Which do you enjoy the most? Field. 2017 Women's World Cup or the 2020 Women's World Cup? You've covered both.
Oh, that's a hard one. Oh, okay, I'd say 2020 if I have to. But only like this much.
Rene Van Niekerk or Mignon Dupree, the better captain?
Oh, wow, that is a very tough question. And it's tough because, oh God, and I'm not supposed to think about this and it's supposed to be rapid fire, but again, Dane maybe just edges Mignon out. Mignon was captain in a different time, so it's a different sort of team as well. I'd say Dane maybe just edges her out. Again, it's very close because very different captain styles, very different teams, very different situations.
Protease men or Protease women?
No, Protease women. That's an easy one.
That wasn't easy, but the last one is going to be difficult. Radio or TV?
I knew you were going to ask this question, and everybody asks me this question. And I hate answering this question. I really do, because they both have things that I absolutely love. If somebody had to say to me, all right, you have to choose between one or the other, and this will be your career for the rest of your life, if I absolutely had to choose, I would probably say TV. But again, it's only just, it's so difficult, and I do hope and pray that I will have chance to do both for the rest of my life.
That's all it for today. It was lovely chatting with you, Natalie, as always. The kind of things you envision for women's cricket, the kind of story you have had is certainly extremely good. I'm sure we'll be able to do many things in the future. So yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's wonderful to talk to you, and thank you so much for everything you guys do as well to showcase the women's game. And I really had a lot of fun today, and certainly enjoyed the chat. Thank you so much.